There's something magical about the snacks of the 1970s, isn't there? The textures, the flavors, the way they felt in your hand. Today, we're bringing 10 of those classics back to life in your kitchen, and we'll tell you exactly why they won't taste quite the same. If you're ready for a proper trip down memory lane, hit that subscribe button, leave a like, and let us know in the comments which one you miss most. Wagon Wheels. Let's start with the giant of the biscuit tin. Wagon Wheels were everywhere in the 70s. Massive rounds of marshmallow and jam sandwiched between two biscuits, all wrapped in chocolate. To recreate them today, you'll need digestive biscuits, raspberry jam, marshmallow fluff, and cooking chocolate. Spread a thin layer of jam on biscuit, pile on the marshmallow, top with another biscuit, then coat the whole thing in melted chocolate. Leave it to set in the fridge. Now here's the thing, modern Wagon Wheels use vegetable fat instead of cocoa butter, and the marshmallow is airier, less dense. The 70s version was richer, heavier, more substantial. Your homemade one will taste closer to the original because you're using real ingredients, but the nostalgia factor, that's something no recipe can replicate. The chocolate was thicker then, the biscuits more crumbly, and somehow they genuinely felt bigger, though that might just be because our hands were smaller. Texan Bars. If you remember the Texan Bar, you probably remember the advert too. A man's got a chew, what a man's got a chew. This chewy toffee and chocolate bar was dense, almost aggressive in its chewiness, the kind of sweet that could pull out a filling if you weren't careful. To make your own, you'll need golden syrup, condensed milk, butter, dark brown sugar, and dark chocolate. Boil the syrup, milk, butter, and sugar together until it reaches soft ball stage. Pour it into a lined tin, let it set. Then slice into bars and coat with melted chocolate. The difference today is stark. Original Texan bars used hydrogenated fats and glucose syrup that gave them an almost plastic texture, chewy but smooth. Your homemade version will be grainier, more natural, because modern butter and sugar behave differently. The 70s bar also had a particular artificial vanilla note that's hard to replicate without adding synthetic flavoring. Still, what you'll create is closer to what Texans should have been: rich, buttery, deeply toffee flavored, just perhaps a bit less likely to glue your teeth together for the next hour. Angel Delight. This one's easier because you can still buy it, but making it from scratch gives you a glimpse into why the original tasted so distinctive. Angel Delight was instant whipped dessert. Just add milk and whisk. To make it yourself, combine instant vanilla pudding mix, icing sugar, double cream, and milk, then whisk until it forms soft peaks. For the classic butterscotch flavor, add a tablespoon of butterscotch sauce. The 70s version was loaded with emulsifiers, stabilizers, and artificial flavors that gave it that impossibly fluffy, almost foam-like texture. It tasted vaguely of the flavor it claimed to be, but mostly it just tasted pink, if that makes sense. Your homemade version will be creamier, more natural, and you'll actually taste real butterscotch instead of a chemical approximation. The color won't be quite as garish either, which, depending on your perspective, is either a loss or a gain. What you lose in that artificial lightness, you gain in actual flavor, but there was something about the original's chemical perfection that felt futuristic, space age, very 1970s. Findus crispy pancakes. These weren't sweets, but they were absolutely iconic. Crispy golden pockets filled with minced beef, chicken, or cheese. They were the height of convenience food. To recreate them, make a simple pancake batter with flour, eggs, and milk. Cook thin pancakes. Fill them with cooked mince or cheese sauce. Fold them into triangles. Coat in beaten egg and breadcrumbs. Then shallow fry until golden. The 70s originals were made in factories with specific frying techniques and contained modified starches and preservatives that kept them crispy even after heating. Your homemade ones will be softer, more rustic, and the filling won't have that slightly mysterious processed texture. The meat in the originals was finely minced almost to a paste, mixed with rusk and seasoned heavily with salt and pepper. Today's version will taste more like actual food, which is both better and somehow less authentic. The memory of biting into one straight from the oven, burning your mouth on molten filling whilst the outside shattered. That's the bit you can recreate perfectly. Vesta chow mein. Vesta ready meals were Britain's gateway to exotic cuisine, and the chow mein was the star. It came in a box with dried noodles, a sachet of sauce, and crispy fried noodles on top. To make it yourself, cook egg noodles, stir-fry vegetables and chicken or prawns, add soy sauce, a touch of sugar, corn flour to thicken, and top with shop-bought crispy noodles. The difference is enormous. The 70s Vesta version used dried vegetables that rehydrated into something vaguely cabbage-like, and the sauce was intensely salty with a chemical sweetness. The crispy noodles were the best part, impossibly crunchy and slightly greasy. Your version will taste like actual Chinese food, or at least closer to it. But it won't have that bizarre, nostalgic flavor that came from reconstituting dried ingredients and adding boiling water to a foil sachet. That taste was unique to an era when Britain was just discovering international cuisine and hadn't quite figured out what it was supposed to taste like yet. Authenticity wasn't the point, adventure was. Arctic roll. This frozen dessert was a staple of 70s dinner parties. A cylinder of vanilla ice cream wrapped in raspberry-coated sponge cake, sliced into spirals. To make it, bake a thin sponge cake. Spread it with raspberry jam whilst warm. Place a log of slightly softened vanilla ice cream in the center. Roll it up tightly. Wrap in cling film and freeze. The 70s version was made with vegetable fat ice cream and a sponge that stayed somehow soft even when frozen, a feat of food science that still baffles people today. Your homemade version will have proper ice cream that's harder when frozen, and the sponge might crack when you roll it. That's normal. The raspberry flavor in the original was intensely artificial, almost medicinal, whilst yours will taste like actual fruit. The texture won't be quite as uniform, but that's because you're making real food, not a mass-produced product designed for consistency. What you will get is that same sense of occasion, the ritual of slicing it, the pretty spiral, the contrast of temperatures. That part, timeless. Orange squash proper concentrate. Before squash became juice drink, it was proper concentrate that you'd dilute to taste. Brands like Kiara came in glass bottles, thick and syrupy. To make your own, boil orange juice with sugar and citric acid until it reduces by half, bottle it, and dilute to taste. The 70s versions were loaded with artificial colors, sunset yellow, anyone, and sweeteners that gave them an almost neon glow. They tasted vaguely of oranges, but mostly of sugar and chemicals. Your homemade version will be darker, more natural, and taste like actual oranges, which means it won't have that distinctive tang that came from artificial additives. The originals also had preservatives that meant they lasted forever in the cupboard. Yours will need refrigerating and using within a week or so. But here's what you gain: real flavor, no E-numbers, and the satisfaction of knowing exactly what's in your glass. The 70s version was convenient and lasted forever, but convenience had a taste, and that taste was very, very orange, even if it wasn't very orange at all. Sherbet Fountains. These iconic tubes of sherbet with a licorice straw were playground currency. To recreate them, mix icing sugar with citric acid and bicarbonate of soda in a 10:2:1 ratio, and serve with a stick of licorice. The fizzing sensation is timeless, but the ingredients have changed. The 70s version used particular ratios that created a more intense fizz, and often included artificial flavoring and coloring that made it bright yellow or pink. Modern citric acid is purer, so your homemade sherbet might fizz differently, perhaps less aggressively. The licorice was also different, made with molasses and aniseed in ways that are less common now. Many modern versions use licorice extract, which tastes cleaner, but less complex. What hasn't changed is the ritual, licking the licorice, dipping it in the sherbet, the fizz on your tongue, the sugar rush, the way it would stick to your lips and make them tingle. That experience translates perfectly because it's about chemistry and childhood. Two things that don't really change, even when the ingredients do. Spangles homemade boiled sweets. We couldn't resist including Spangles even though they featured in another video. To make boiled sweets like them, heat sugar, water, and glucose syrup to hard crack stage, 150 degrees Celsius. Add flavoring and coloring. Pour onto a grease surface. Cut into squares when cool. The 70s Spangles were made in industrial settings with precise temperature controls and specific flavorings that are hard to find now. The Old English variety, for instance, had a particular combination of licorice and mint that tasted like Victorian cough medicine. Your homemade sweets will be harder to get perfectly square, and the flavors won't be quite as intense because commercial flavorings are more concentrated than home versions. The texture might also be slightly different, less glass-like, more variable. But what you will capture is the satisfaction of making your own sweets, the smell of boiling sugar, the jewel-like appearance, and a flavor that's actually recognizable as fruit or mint. The originals tasted like memories of fruit, like someone describing an orange to someone who'd never seen one. Yours will taste like you actually used food. Ready salted crisps traditional style. Before crisps came in 50 flavors, ready salted was the classic, and they tasted different then. To make traditional crisps, slice potatoes paper thin, soak in cold water for 30 minutes, pat dry thoroughly, fry in lard or beef dripping at 180 degrees Celsius until golden, drain and salt immediately. The difference is fundamental. The 70s crisps were fried in animal fats, mostly lard or beef dripping, which gave them a savory, almost meaty flavor that vegetable oils simply can't replicate. Modern crisps use sunflower or rapeseed oil for health and vegetarian reasons, and whilst they're crunchier and arguably better for you, they lack that distinctive depth. The potatoes were also different varieties, often Morris Piper or King Edward, grown in British soil, that gave them a particular earthiness. Your homemade crisps fried in dripping will taste astonishingly close to the originals, rich, savory, deeply satisfying. The salt was often coarser too, large crystals that you could see and feel. What you'll discover is that crisps used to taste more like actual food, less like a standardized product. The variation between batches was part of the charm. These recipes won't take you back in time, not really, but they'll give you something perhaps more valuable, an understanding of why those snacks tasted the way they did, and why they can't quite taste that way again. Ingredients change, regulations improve, and our palates evolve. If you've enjoyed this journey through British culinary history, subscribe for more, leave a like, and tell us which 70s snack you'd bring back if you could.